let me. I'm on the web browser, but I need to. I don't know how to get. Okay, let me see if I can go into the app. Hold on. Okay, there we are. The app is better.
Okay.
Hi, I'm B speaking. I go by B Speaks. Hello. Good
Hi.
night.
Hello, I'm Ish the Empress, known as Ish.
Yesterday, or really? Yesterday, or really? I'm good. How are you? Wonderful. Yes. So, ANWO was created by the African People's Socialist Party in 2015 as a strategy to recruit and organize African women from around the world into revolutionary political life. So we've been around since 2015, and this year we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. Um, and we're still a relatively small organization, but I feel like we are a very mature organization. Have made it to the point where we have really consistent, dedicated members who are committed to transforming the world, and bringing themselves and other African women into revolutionary political life as well. I've been in the party, the African People's Socialist Party, wow, for I said 2015. So I've been in the party maybe about 20 years. How old am I now? Yeah, like maybe like 19 years. And I've been the president of the African National Women's Organization for the last no, sorry, not 19 years, 15 years. And I've been in the president of the African National Women's Organization for the 10 years. And yeah, but I've been the party and the Uhuru movement has been my first organizing experience, and I have since, because of my role in the organization, been around other movements. So I've since understood like how significant the party is in this political landscape, but particularly um, on around issues of African people. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. No, right. That's the latter part. I think what the African People's Socialist Party does, I just want to give props to its chairman, Chairman Amalia Shatella, of the theory of African internationalism, because it provided so much clarity for things that I had already been thinking about, right? Like what's in my head, and why does this happen, and what's happening to African people? Why are we like destitute all the time, and like why are we in this position all over the world? And it's not because somehow we're the laziest or we don't know how to figure stuff out. It's because of a system of that, a parasitic system that undermines our ability to be self-determined. and recognizing that the way that the colonial capitalist system works is it sucks the blood out of, what they call colonies all over the world. And so that helped to bring answers to a lot of the questions that I had in my head, and clarity around, what we have to do as African people in order to free ourselves, and really also identifies like the stratas of power. And like, so it's not that I'm fighting for white people to like me, or that racism, I really want them to understand me as a Black woman. Like, none of that stuff. Like, we're fighting for power, fighting for the things that would allow us to govern ourselves and to improve the conditions that African people are experiencing all over the world, and using the resources at our disposal on our homeland, African continent, and in the places of where we are, to really turn the tide. And it really also recognizes the question of workers and the significance of African workers, and where actual value in the world comes from in terms of like workers.
Oh, you're fine, Mo. I was saying that it was a delay, so I was telling you that I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, so I just wanted to tap on that point, and also just recognize that, African internationalism is one theory, one line. Like, some other organizations, they may have people in the organization that think a whole bunch of things, and that's fine. But we're very, like, in the party, and in the party at the very most, we are clear that the objective, that why we are all there for, is to get free, and we are very clear that the way that we get free is by overturning our relationships with colonialism. And whatever else we think about, that's fine. But like, we're all like, if you ask any one of us like how we get free, every one of us will tell you the same thing. Like, we need to destroy colonialism and get, like, there's no muck around that. And in terms of the book club, yes, we do a monthly book club called Harriet's Daughters Study Group and Book Club. It's held online, but we also have the capacity of doing that in person if anybody should want to lead that locally. And we try to highlight books that are written by African women, or works that highlight African women. And regardless of whether it's fiction, or nonfiction, or any kind of writing style, we'll explore the topics and themes in the book, and provide, like, we have discussions and analyze like the content. So the last one that was really popular was Wretched of the Earth. And then we also did something this month around gender, and that being a topic of discussion as to, how the colonial system, defines gender. And we also did like fictional works in the past, and just have some really great discussions about them.
I love that. Where do you guys usually hold this book club monthly? I
So
know it's online, but I guess, like, are you guys doing it through a platform specifically?
yeah, we mostly just keep it on Zoom, and we don't really broadcast it or stream it. People are welcome African women. It started with just African women, but we realized that other people want to be involved in these discussions too, that support us. So we was like, come on in. And, we have non-African people who are so-called allies of solidarity. We have African men who also participate. And it's really great. It really helps boost the conversations. And yeah, it's mostly held through Zoom. And if folks are interested, they can go to our website, anwo.org, and just click on events. And you'll see when the next one is scheduled for. We have one coming up in October. Yeah, we have one main campaign right now, which is the Arrest CPS campaign, which focuses on the state-sponsored kidnapping of African children and the criminalization of their families. And which is a very difficult topic to talk about for the obvious reasons that people don't want children to be harmed, but they also recognize that nobody wants CPS called on them, not because they're doing something wrong, because they recognize how ineffective and what's the word, how partial that system is too, like what can come out of that. So our campaign, we've been leading that for 2017, and that work goes that is along. Initially, we were doing advocacy with families one-on-one, but that, based on our size, we couldn't really maintain that or sustain that. So we really shifted into political education. We also coordinate the Black Mothers March, which is an annual march in Washington that organizes parents, community, and families, and helps to build our movement and strategy around this issue. And yeah, I think that through the collective work of all of these organizations, particularly in the Black Mothers March atmosphere, we are able to like shift the narrative around what kind of system child protective services is, and why it doesn't really help us. In the past, not currently right now, we also had an alternative. How then, if we are concerned about the children and how they're being taken care of, what kinds of things then can we do as a people to ensure that families are supported and children are not harmed, and we have something that can look at different dynamics, which was called the Uhuru Kijiji Child Care Collective, and we're going to bring it back. But it really looks at our community-led child welfare network, which not only does like child care, but it also investigates and builds with parents and call community to one another, so that to prevent families being vulnerable to the state coming into your lives. If for example you don't have enough food, or maybe you're frustrated and you might take it out on yourself or others and things like that. So really drawing in that community. So we recognize that while we're talking about a system that is exploitative and parasitic, that we also have to build something in response to what could be an issue in our community. That's our major campaign. We have some other things that we've done in the past, but what we're looking forward to, particularly now, is how do we, the crisis of imperialism is deepening. People are feeling the burn and the crunch, and it's economic, undermining in our community. So we're really looking at ways that we can work collaboratively and come up with collaborative solutions that will, mitigate the impact of a deepening and worsening crisis of imperialism that, as we well know, will, deeply affect the African community and African women who have a really key position in our communities. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. I don't have anything to add. It sounds like, yeah, that's what we are doing. And mostly we wanna be an example to other African women. Um, because sometimes, we know that African mothers in particular are the most oppressed if we're talking about women, right? Like, because our children and the responsibility of raising children, family, and all that stuff deepens the kind of like determines the kind of decisions that we make in our lives, what kind of job that we're going to get, kind of housing that we are able to get, what kind of time that we have. These things will, sometimes put us in situations where we have to sacrifice a lot just to make sure that we can make ends meet. And not all African women are struggling out here in these, but I'm just saying, like, if we look at the whole world and African mothers, we can see, like, some of the decisions that they have to make based on what they got to do to take care of their family. And if you're not an African woman mother, you still are, but an African woman, you still are experiencing, these things as well. And so, what we try to be is an example to African women, that it's a part of our DNA to be revolutionary. Like, you may not feel like you are, but like, it's a part of our DNA to push back. It's a part of our DNA in whatever kind of way that we have been. I think the difference with ANWO is that we call to question, like, do we want to end being resistors? Because at some point, this stuff got to end. At some point, we got to change the whole landscape, because if we don't, then we're going to give birth to or continue to be on the defensive for eons. And so ANWO calls to question, like, how do we start to create those solutions for ourselves, and how do we hasten, like, quicken, like, the destruction of colonialism, so that our people can be free and that we can make decisions that are actually going to solve problems in our lives, as opposed to being on some sort of hamster wheel. Yeah.
Feel like at times it just listening to how big the initiative is, it seems like it's probably a everlasting goal to have to chase different types of objectives or initiatives at a time. So how do you guys manage that? Like, how do you manage the focus of what is crucial at this moment versus something else, like putting something else in on the back burner? So how do you prioritize for the organization?
I think I mean, there's so many things that we can be organizing around. I think first things first is that we have to look at our capacity. Who are our active members? How many are there? Where are they? What do they have? Because everybody who works with us is a member volunteer. They pay dues to allow us to make decisions and do things, but like, everybody is a volunteer with their time. So we have to really look at people's capacity. Number two, we have to really double down on what the chairman said. Like, we are in a protracted struggle. We can't, like, bob our heads to every little thing that springs up. And so we believe that this question of kidnapping of African children, African mothers being criminalized, cuts to the center of who we are as Africans. It is a whole entire destruction of our community, and a weakening of our resistance, because now you have a child mom any other way, and families are destroyed because maybe mom did screamed at the baby, or maybe somebody who hit the baby. And there's destruction in the whole entire family, right? Like, everybody's harmed by this. And then even if the child, there's nothing that happened to the child, and was sort of like misunderstanding, and the child is released to the mom, but it's taken away for any amount of time, the harm that child is, they will always remember being taken away from their family, right? And the circumstances under which they so there's no way that you can get that back. There's nothing that repairs that. So for us in this organization, because we're such a small organization still, we really have to measure our capacity. We know how to do arrest CPS stuff. We do also participate in other actions. There's a thing that's happening. We got members on the ground that can banner, fires, things that we in our communities that can assist or help us build and get our message out. Is there a table that we could put up somewhere? Is there some economic development that we? But it's all based on our members, who are, in my opinion, like the dopest members that we've had ever. so that's really great. Well, I can stay a little bit longer if you need me to, like maybe 15 minutes past the hour. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I just want to say, in these feminine streets, the question of white partners is not really the issue of violence. Like everywhere that if an African woman is organizing ourselves, is not organizing so that we can get football players to marry black women. It's organizing because we don't want to be killed or harmed or things like that. And unfortunately, when you're a colonized person, the level of violence that you're experiencing is heightened. Whether you're a black woman, black man, like your experience is heightened because of the oppressive conditions that you are living under that stresses you out. And unfortunately, some handle those, they result to violence because they have to feel power or control, and if they can't be in control of their own lives, they have to control others, and so that's how that manifests in our community. So it's really important for us as a women's organization clarify that question around, and also like the feminist agenda. We are feminists, and when we're talking about whether or not men are the greatest purveyors of violence toward African women, and that we can clearly see that colonialism is the issue. Colonialism is a problem. It creates the conditions in the way we live. It does not protect African people, period, and it certainly does not protect African women. And all I have to look forward to is that if we get to that destination on the other side, then of course African women as leaders, like, these are the laws that we're going to put in place. These are the things. Now we're going to set. It's going to be restorative, because I don't think that African women are penalized together. That is nurturing and cultivating, families and people, and so that we can live our best possible lives. But for us, as a women's organization, we exist in a sea of feminist, radical, womanist things. These other kind of terms that have defined what it means to talk about women's issues. And so for us, it's really important to like really center it politically on what we're really fighting for. So we always bring that to.
How do you guys, as an organization, paint what you're saying is feminism within the group as a not negative way. Like, I know feminism often comes with a negative connotation to so many people. How do you guys stand above that when speaking on the organization without getting that negative connotation to the organization?
We might get the negative connotation. That's okay though. We're fine with that. I mean,
It's like that sometimes.
like that. You know, I think if you're a hardcore feminist, and you're not open to different lines of ways of thinking, particularly if you're an African woman and you can't like really see the forest because of the trees, then you know anything that we say, whether it makes sense to you, will block out. It'll block out, right? Like you can't hear. And we've engaged those kind of people. We also try to. I mean, in the past, we were probably like more petty, right? Like, you know, but we try to, you know, politicize it. You know, where feminism comes from, what class of women engage in feminist thought and theory, and use that as a conveying, you know, reason why they do stuff. We also look at where feminism grows out of, and it usually grows out of academia, street, with the working class. So you have to learn feminism in that kind of way. And then we also talk about like some situations where feminists, you know, feminism and all the different iterations of feminism too. Like there's so many different iterations of feminism because it doesn't fit. There's black radical feminism, there's this kind of hood feminism, this kind of feminism. These all these things because just feminism doesn't address who we are as African people or who many other colonized people are. So you have to, you know, intersectional effect to like throw these things on. So for us, we just say, you know, African women are half of the African. Like we either gonna get free or we gonna get feminine. You know what I mean? Like we're either gonna contribute to the overturning of the relationship that we have to colonialism, free all of our people, and that will allow for us to have more say over our lives and more agency over our lives, or we continue to, you know, struggle for, you know, the scraps off the table and things like that. So, you know, we do all these things and sometimes we are, you know, sometimes it don't come out nice or it doesn't come out in a palatable way for people who are not open to other ways of thinking. And we also find that feminists can think anything. Their feminism is individual to them. There's not one feminist that's the same as the other. And that's a problem if you're talking about a liberation. I don't even think that it's identified a liberation theory or way of thought. So it's a contradiction to have, you know, feminists who who are individual feminists and they're like, well, I'm not that kind of feminist. I'm this kind of or the nuances of it, and it's really sometimes confusing, and you don't know what kind of feminist you're talking to, even if they've identified themselves in a specific way. There's still even like a black radical feminist can be so many different things, which influences how they organize, who they talk, what their objectives are. And I'm gonna try to make sure to answer so so I can use the time wisely. Yeah, great. If you're an African woman, we want you to join. Um, and you know, some people are active, some people are not active, and we say that membership can look different kinds of ways. So you could be an active member, you could pay dues to us so that we can continue to do the work that we're able to do and be in these streets with us. You can just be a dues paying member because you want to support us and make sure that we can to just do start our continue to do our work. And if you're not an African woman, if you're you're an African man or whatever kind of human being that you are, you can support financially through donations. We have monthly donations, time donations like that all support. But we also have ways that you can be a part of the committee work that we do, right? You don't have to be an African woman to be a part of a committee locally in our community because we're setting up a RESCPS local organizing committee. So if you're tied into that sort of project, then tap into us that you can be a part of our work and help build our campaign on the ground. And then other ways to support is, follow us on our social medias and comment and, share information about our organization with others. Yeah, I think really just getting the visibility out there, learning more about who we are, I think is important. And yeah, don't be afraid to engage, you know. And they can go to anwouhuru.org, ANWOUHURU.org, and, read up on who we are and what we do.
Thank you again for your time. I know your time is so valuable. So thank you again for just sitting, explaining the organization to us, bringing us into the mindset and the core of the organization and what drives something and someone like you to continue to push forward a positive agenda towards change, especially for women, especially for Black women. So yes, it was such a pleasure.
Great, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being on a platform with other Black women. So if you need me to come back or to help, I will absolutely do so. And yeah, it was great to be on. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'll see you guys later. Appreciate you.
Bye.